A brief summary on the origin of money. Ever stopped to think about where money actually comes from? It's far more than just coins and bills. Money has shaped our world, driven empires, and even determined who has power and who doesn't. What you're about to hear is the untold story of money's origin and how it controls us today. Let's dive in. The origin of money. Long before we had coins and notes, the very concept of value was tied to survival. People traded what they needed to survive: food, water, shelter. But this led to the birth of bartering, where one resource was exchanged for another. Sounds simple, right? But as communities grew, bartering became less practical. Imagine trying to exchange a cow for grain when you don't need grain. Enter commodity money: cattle, grains, even seashells, objects that held intrinsic value and were easier to trade. The shift to precious metals. The real revolution came when powerful ancient civilizations, like the Sumerians and Egyptians, started using precious metals. Gold and silver had qualities that made them perfect for currency, abundant enough to be minted into coins, yet rare enough to hold significant value. This was the turning point. Rulers, realizing that money could symbolize more than just wealth, began stamping their own symbols on these precious metals. Suddenly, money wasn't just a means of exchange, it was a tool of authority and control, a way to solidify power. The rise of currency systems. As empires expanded and trade routes flourished, the need for a more universal medium of exchange grew. Coins from the Roman Empire, backed by Rome's vast influence, became widely accepted across regions. At the same time, in China, the Tang dynasty introduced paper money, essentially promissory notes that were backed by the emperor's word. These early currencies were revolutionary, making large-scale trade and economic systems far more efficient than ever before. The birth of central banking. By the 17th century, the concept of central banking was born. The establishment of the Bank of England in 1694 marked a crucial moment in monetary history. The bank began issuing paper notes that promised to be exchanged for gold. This was a critical development in how we viewed money. Paper was no longer just paper. It represented real value, a promise of gold in exchange. This is when paper money truly became a tool for debt, credit, and financing of empires and projects on an unprecedented scale. The 20th century shift. But here's where things take a dark turn. In 1971, the US made a seismic shift in monetary policy. It abandoned the gold standard. Until then, money was directly tied to the value of gold, no more. With the removal of this link, money became fiat currency, meaning it was no longer backed by anything physical. It only held value because the government said it did. This change allowed central banks to print endless amounts of money, fundamentally altering economies and making them vulnerable to manipulation. The consequences of fiat money. The rise of fiat money opened the door to inflation, debt crises, and financial collapses. These aren't just random events, they are often the result of deliberate policies designed to control economic systems. Every economic crash, every bailout issued by governments, has a deeper agenda behind it, controlled by a select few. The financial system has been carefully engineered to serve the interests of the powerful, and the consequences of this are felt by everyday people around the world. The digital age of money. Fast forward to today, and money has become a digital concept. What we think of as currency is now just entries in massive global databases, controlled by central banks. Nations are bound by crushing debt because they borrow from these powerful institutions, paying back interest that keeps them in a cycle of dependency. Money has become a commodity itself, traded and manipulated by the financial elite. The money in your bank account is just a number on a screen, controlled by forces far beyond your reach. The rise of cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies emerged as a rebellion against this system, offering a decentralized alternative to government-controlled money. But even this revolution has its risks. As cryptocurrencies gain popularity, governments are exploring central bank digital currencies (CBDCs), which aim to replace traditional cash altogether. Imagine a world where every transaction you make is not just traceable but programmable. A world where, if necessary, your ability to spend could be turned off at the flip of a switch. The hidden power structures. Money is more than just a means of exchange, it's a tool of control. Central banks may be the most visible players, but they are just one part of the puzzle. Behind them stand powerful financial dynasties, secret societies, and multinational corporations with influence that transcends borders. These entities shape global economies and determine the rules of the game. They've learned how to manipulate the financial system to serve their interests, and it is the rest of us who pay the price. The power of financial dynasties. Take the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, and Morgans, for example. These families didn't just accumulate wealth, they shaped entire systems. The Rothschilds financed wars, influencing the course of modern Europe. The Rockefellers monopolized oil, setting the foundation for corporate dominance in the 20th century. The Morgans didn't just fund projects, they practically engineered the creation of the Federal Reserve, turning the US financial system into a private enterprise that controls much of the world's monetary policy. Before we can budget, save, or invest wisely, we first need to understand the story of money. In a world where money is no longer tied to real value, where every transaction is tracked, and where the powerful hold the reins, what does true financial freedom look like? Is there a way out of this system, or are we just pawns in a game we didn't choose? The story of money isn't over, it's just beginning. Stay tuned because the next chapter could change everything.